Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good morning. The devotional today will be led by Representative Bram Kleppner of Burlington.
Good morning. I always wanted to do that. The philosopher David Hume once observed that the truth emerges from an argument among friends. We all know the feeling. When you're arguing with friends, you're not arguing and trying to win just to win. Aside from some good-natured ribbing, you're actually working together to try to figure out what actually happened, or what the truth is, or what the best decision is going to be. When you're arguing with your friends, if your friend has a better idea than yours, you abandon your idea immediately and start working on the better idea. And when you're arguing with friends, you're careful not to hurt each other. When you're arguing with someone who is not a friend, on the other hand, you don't know why they're arguing. They may be trying to get to the truth, or they may be trying to win just to win, even if their position isn't best. They may be trying to score points with somebody else. They may be arguing out of some ideology, even if that particular ideology doesn't lead to the best solution in this particular situation. They may be trying to take advantage of you. They may be trying to hurt you. And if they detect any of your vulnerabilities, they may take advantage of them. And because of this, when we are arguing with people who are not friends, we are careful with our words. We're cautious. We keep our cards close to our chest. We don't explore new ideas. We don't share our full opinions. And when, out of fear that our words or our ideas might be used against us, we do not share what may be our best ideas or our deepest beliefs, we, as a body, cannot do our best work. Luckily, in Vermont, we have a long tradition of arguing with our friends. The civil invocation that opens town meeting every year in Middlesex and other towns, which I think provides wise guidance to all public assemblies, says, "We have come together in civil assembly as a community in a tradition that is older than our state itself. We come together to make decisions about our community. As we deliberate, let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of other people. Let us remember that our neighbors with whom we may disagree have hopes and dreams as true and high as our own. And let us always remember that caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any differences we may have." I always feel like saying amen when I hear that. So in this chamber, let us argue only because we are honestly trying to decide what is most likely to be best for Vermonters. Let us truly listen to each other. Let us argue with open minds and open hearts. Let us argue, in Abraham Lincoln's words, with malice toward none and with charity toward all. And let us argue always as friends. Thank you.
Members, on this Friday, we honor a former member of the House who passed away since our last Friday memoriam. Please rise as we remember a member of the House who we lost this past week. Representative Kathleen Kathy Hoyt of Norwich. Was born in 1942 and served in the House in 2014 and passed away on March 7th, 2025. Please join me in a moment of silence in memory of Representative Hoyt. Members, we have 6 House bills for introduction today. The first is House Bill 474, which is an act relating to miscellaneous changes to election law, introduced by the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 474, an act relating to miscellaneous changes to election law.
Now the bill's been read the first time and as a committee bill is placed on the calendar for notice on the next legislative day pursuant to House Rule 48. The next is House Bill 475, which is an act relating to establishing an equitable pricing system for the milk production, introduced by Representative O'Brien of Tunbridge. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 475, an act relating to establishing an equitable pricing system for the milk production.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry. House Bill 476 is an act relating to establishing a mechanized logging and trucking training program, introduced by Representative O'Brien of Tunbridge. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 476, an act relating to establishing a mechanized logging and trucking training program.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. Next is House Bill 477, which is an act relating to forest management harvests on state forest lands, introduced by Representative O'Brien of Tunbridge. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 477, an act relating to forest management harvests on state forest lands.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry. Next is House Bill 478, which is an act requiring price lookup stickers on produce to be compostable, introduced by Representative O'Brien of Tunbridge. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 478, an act relating to requiring price lookup stickers on produce be compostable.
Now the bill's been read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry. And finally, House Bill 479 is an act relating to housing, introduced by the Committee on General and Housing. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 479, an act relating to housing.
Now the bill's been read the first time and affecting the revenue of the state. Bill is referred to the Committee on Ways and Means pursuant to House Rule 35A. Members, we have received a request to read a House concurrent resolution that the House and Senate adopted pursuant to the consent calendar. HCR 31 is a House concurrent resolution in memory of former University of Vermont Associate Professor, poet, and community leader Mary Jane Dickerson. Please listen to the reading of the resolution.
Whereas Mary Jane Dickerson graduated from the former Women's College at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro and earned a master's degree in English from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where she met her future husband, the late A. Inskip Dickerson Jr., both destined to become University of Vermont, UVM, English professors. And whereas her UVM career roles were Director of Freshman English, Associate Director of Writing, and ultimately Associate Professor of English. And she developed a course in women's autobiography and UVM's first class in African American literature. And whereas Mary Jane Dickerson was the recipient of UVM's George V. Kidder Outstanding Faculty Award in 2007. established the Mary Jane Dickerson Scholarship Fund to support English majors, was delighted to teach as a visiting scholar in Japan and South Africa, and in 2016 was honored with induction into the Distinguished Society of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. And whereas she applied her literary expertise to teaching classes in reading and writing at local libraries, serving on the faculty of the New England Young Writers Conference at Middlebury College's Breadloaf School of English, and publishing 2 volumes of poetry, Water Journeys in Art and Poetry and Tapping the Center of Things, poems. And her community service consisted of serving on the boards of UVM's Fleming Museum and the Deborah Rawson Memorial Library in Jericho, on the Jericho Zoning Board of Adjustment and Board of Civil Authority, and as the Jericho Center Preservation Association treasurer. She was active in local Democratic politics. Whereas Mary Jane Dickerson, a cherished friend to many who took great pride in co-founding Sundog Poetry, an organization that supports Vermont poets and whose passion for North Carolina's sandhills endured, died on October 3rd, 2024 at 87 years of age and is survived by her children and grandchildren. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly extends its sincere condolences to the family of Mary Jane Dickerson, and be it further resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this resolution to the family of Mary Jane Dickerson and the Jericho Town Clerk.
Are there any announcements, member from Jericho?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mary Jane Dickerson was born and raised in North Carolina, and while she maintained her Southern lilt, she fully embraced Vermont, becoming a pillar of the Jericho community. She and her husband Skip raised their children in an old farmhouse in Jericho Center that they renovated together. As you heard in the resolution read a few minutes ago, just moments ago, she was an associate professor at the University of Vermont, teaching literature and writing for more than 30 years. She continued sharing her love of poetry, teaching community members at the library and through Sundog Poetry, which she co-founded. You also heard that she served our community in many ways as a trustee of the library and as a member of the Fleming Museum Board. In 2013, Mary Jane was elected to serve as Justice of the Peace. She never missed a meeting of the Board of Civil Authority until she became ill. I would like to read just a few sentences from her obituary as published in 7 days. Mary Jane's zest for life, empathy, eloquence, and generous spirit made a powerful impression on those who were lucky enough to know her. Her gardens, cultivated with care and imagination over 56 years, reflected her magnificent aesthetic sense that seemed to radiate from her at all times. She championed her children and her grandchildren in all of their endeavors, valuing each child's particular talents and interests with equal enthusiasm. Even during her most difficult days at the end of her life, Mary Jane maintained a profound sense of gratitude and for all of her blessings. And now, if you would indulge me for just a moment more, I would love to share from one of her poems, Spring Sweet Harvest. It's the last weekend in March, annual open house for Vermont's sugar makers, when neighbors and families gather to celebrate and taste the sweetest of spring's harvest, clear liquid siphoned from the maples, sugar bushes sloping across the state. Only this year's not good so far. After a run of 2 warm springs, this year's too cold, with many places yet in winter's grip, freezing the sap mid-flow in these fluctuating seasons of foreboding. Only 2 days or so of a steady flow of maple sap into plastic tubes, weave of bright strands through naked wood, or into buckets hanging from taps, setting up the daytime ping of daytime music keeping step with the man walking his dog along a dirt road lined with ancient maples, their limbs gnarled into fingers curling over the roadside. Some of Mary Jane's family and friends are here with us today. Please welcome them to the People's House as we honor Mary Jane this morning.
Will the guest of the member from Jericho please rise and be recognized? Member from Jericho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am going to try not to make a habit of this. We have with us this morning to celebrate Mary Jane, but also to be with us, the esteemed member from Jericho, former Speaker of the House. If we could welcome her to the State House as well. Thank you.
Will the former Speaker of the House please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Member from Waitsfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am so pleased to welcome my parents, David and Mary Carol White, to the State House this morning. They have come for the weekend to ski and also to visit their daughter. And with a little convincing, they came to the State House this morning. I wanted them to experience the beauty of this majestic building and also get a tiny glimpse of the shared commitment and camaraderie of this body. I would be grateful if you could help welcome my parents, residents of neighboring New York State, and perhaps more importantly, devout Buffalo Bills fans. They're in the balcony. Thank you.
Will the family of the member from Waitsfield please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Member from Colchester.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is my great pleasure to welcome some truly exceptional colleagues to the People's House today. My incredible co-workers from the Department of Oversight and Monitoring from the Department of Health Access, DEPA. Their patience, dedication, and support have made it possible for me to be here today, often taking on extra work, namely mine. I am deeply grateful for their teamwork and commitment. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Rachel Schutz, Michael Hart, Ann Petro, and Carol Stone.
Will the guest of the member from Colchester please rise and be recognized? Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, orders of the day. Members, we will begin with House Bill 1, which is an act relating to accepting and referring complaints by the State Ethics Commission. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H1, an act relating to accepting and referring complaints by the State Ethics Commission.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Next is House Bill 206, which is an act relating to the Uniform Commercial Code. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H206, an act relating to the Uniform Commercial Code.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Now we'll turn to House Bill 238, which is an act relating to the phase-out of consumer products containing added PFAS substances. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H238, an act relating to the phase-out of consumer products containing added perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Next is House Bill 458, which is an act relating to the Agency of Digital Services. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H 458, an act relating to the Agency of Digital Services.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Now we'll take up House Bill 463, which is an act relating to technical corrections for the 2025 legislative session. The bill was introduced by the Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. The member from Burlington, Representative Hooper, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 463, an act relating to technical corrections for the 2025 legislative session.
Member from Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. H 463 is an action-packed 101-page bill dealing with technical corrections that Legislative Council and committees have found in the course of reviewing changes to the law. It's long, and it's designed to be non-substantive technical amendments to existing statutes, which are not items of critical change. You can find a copy of the bill on the House Government Operations page, and if you'd like to follow along, you're more than welcome to. The first type of change that we see is on page 1, where at the bottom, lines 16 and 17, references to previous statute are deleted because they're no longer relevant. On the next page, page 2, line 1, you see us using more modern language, which doesn't invoke a stodgy old man that smells like a mattress in a white wig speaking to you, moving from Old English sort of to more contemporary references. Further down on line 9, we remove gender-based language, his or her, and specifically talk about the office itself. In that case, we're speaking of the governor. At the bottom of that page, we talk about removing the word regulations and sticking with rules, which is more akin to what actually happens in the process of legislative rulemaking. Moving over to page 3 on 4, 5, 6, and 7, no longer relevant references to existing statute. Down on line 18, we changed therein to made in the license application so that it seems less haughty and more easily absorbed. On page 4, line 11, we move away from archaic language and adopt more of a consistent style. Further down that page on lines 15, 18, we're moving style and reordering based on how the chapters and other provisions of law are presented. Excuse me, my voice is going to go. On line 4, page 5, we notice that department is moved from a capital letter down to a regular case letter. General references to rules again. On page 6, we would note gender changes. Once again, the rules. And I know you probably, when you were reviewing the language last night, were on the edge of your seat about line 17, where we get into the difference between inshore and inshore and why we're even considering elderly protein drinks in the statute. These are pretty much the content, punctuation, changes in style, gender-specific changes that are made throughout the whole bill. If members have specific questions about specific sections that you might have come across and why the particular change was made, certainly entertain them. But Madam Speaker, I think that, as you noted, it's pretty much boring stuff. So the committee met with Legislative Counsel 3 times, went over every page of this, put it out by an 11-0-0 vote, and we would ask for your consideration.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Next, we'll turn to House Bill 137, which is an act relating to the regulation of insurance products and services. The bill was referred to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development, which recommends that the bill be amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from Bethel, Representative White, will speak for the committee. And affecting the revenue of the state, the bill was then referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, which recommends that the bill ought to pass when amended, as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. The member from South Burlington, Representative Burkhart, will recommend for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 137, an act relating to the regulation of insurance products and services.
Member from Bethel.
Madam Speaker, an important component of effective financial regulation is that regulations are clear, consistent, and up-to-date when addressing emerging trends and challenges. Vermont is highly respected both nationally and internationally for its regulatory excellence. This has resulted in such benefits to Vermont as it becoming the world's largest domicile of captive insurance companies, generating over $26 million per year in tax and fee revenue. In order to maintain these high standards, the Department of Financial Regulation regularly reviews and recommends updates to their regulations. H 137, as amended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development, incorporates housekeeping and substantive proposals put forth by the Department of Financial Regulation, as well as some additional provisions added by the committee. What follows is a section-by-section summary of the committee's report. For those of you who'd like to follow along, this strike-all amendment by your Committee on Commerce and Economic Development can be found on page 441 in today's calendar. Section 1 pertains to the confidentiality of investigations and examinations conducted by the department generally. The proposed amendment clarifies that the confidentiality provisions apply to all persons licensed, authorized, or registered, or required to be licensed, authorized, or registered by the Commissioner, and not just those regulated under Title 8 or Title 9, Chapter 150. This is because there are DFR-regulated entities under other titles, such as Title 18 for pharmacy benefit managers and Title 21 for self-insured workers' comp plans. Section 2 proposes to delete a cross-reference to a repealed law and replace it with a reference to the existing statute pertaining to the Commissioner's rulemaking authority. Section 3 pertains to property and casualty insurance rate regulation in competitive markets specifically. It proposes to require insurance companies to submit rate information, including any supplementary materials supporting a proposed rate increase, to the Commissioner 30 days prior to the effective date of that proposed rate increase, rather than 15 days after such effective date, which is the current law. The acting Commissioner testified that this is consistent with current practice as well as with rate proceedings in non-competitive markets. Section 4 proposes to amend Vermont's unfair trade practices law as it applies specifically to insurance companies. The amendment clarifies that it is unfair discrimination for a homeowner's or renter's insurance company to make adverse coverage decisions because the underlying real property constitutes affordable housing. Section 5 through 14 all pertain to captive insurance companies. In particular, Section 5 specifies that a captive insurance company may conduct any type of insurance authorized in Vermont, subject to existing statutory limits. Section 6, as well as Sections 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 14, propose to update existing law with respect to who must submit required statements and reports to the Commissioner. Current law refers only to executive officers. However, a captive that is formed as a limited liability company or a reciprocal insurer does not have executive officers. Accordingly, these provisions, as they appear throughout existing law, are broadened to specify that where a captive is formed as an LLC or a reciprocal insurer, the required statements and reports should be submitted by individuals authorized by the company's governing board. Remember this Section 6, as I'm going to refer to it again several times. Section 7 updates a cross-reference to the new chapter governing LLCs. Former Chapter 21 was repealed and replaced with existing Chapter 25. It also adds a provision specifying that a captive formed as a mutual insurer must comply with the general law applicable to mutual insurers, as well as with captive insurance law, and in the event of a conflict, captive insurance law controls. Section 8, the only change in there is consistent with Section 6, as I described above. Again, changing who can make those oath statements to the Commissioner. Section 9 includes an amendment consistent with Section 6, as described above, and also specifies that reports filed with DFR by risk retention groups are not subject to existing confidentiality provisions. This is because risk retention group reports are subject to National Association of Insurance Commissioner standards, which require them to be publicly available. Section 10 specifies that a captive insurance company may provide reinsurance of any insurance policy authorized in Vermont, subject to the Commissioner's approval. Section 11 applies to dormant captives, and the amendment is consistent with Section 6, as mentioned before. Section 12 applies to branch captives. A branch captive is the U.S. domicile of an alien or foreign insurance company that insures U.S. policyholders. The proposal includes an amendment consistent with Section 6, again, as described before. Section 13 applies to captive insurance companies that form special purpose financial insurance companies to facilitate insurance securitization, that is, transferring risks to investors in capital markets. Again, this includes an amendment similar, consistent with Section 6. Section 14 pertains to the governance standards applicable to risk retention groups and essentially proposes to amend how the existing statute is constructed to more accurately conform with the model law on which it was originally based. The subject of the statute concerns the definition of a material relationship with respect to the qualifications for a risk retention group's board of directors. Section 15 applies to companies in Vermont that are required to obtain a money transmission license. Under current law, there are 17 types of companies that are specifically exempt from having to obtain a money transmission license in Vermont. This section proposes to add 3 additional exemptions. Companies that perform payroll calculations, prepare payroll instructions, prepare and file income withholding reports and UI reports or other payroll-related services, but that do not engage in payroll processing in Vermont is one of those. The second is companies that do not provide payroll processing services to any employer that has its principal place of business its headquarters, in Vermont, and smaller payroll processors, not more than 25 employers in Vermont, not more than 500 employers anywhere, and fewer than 300 Vermont resident employees. No felonies, no license revocations, doesn't otherwise engage in money transmission, keeps money in segregated accounts, or deposits it in FDIC-insured institutions or credit unions. So those are the 3 exemptions. Section 16 pertains to interest caps applicable to loans generally, and more specifically to charges that are not subject to statutory interest caps, otherwise known as permitted charges. Proposed amendment specifies that discount points used at a borrower's request for the purpose of lowering the applicable interest rate are a permitted charge under the law. Sections 17, 18, and 19 are all DFR studies related to legislation discussed in committee, but which require additional consideration by the department in consultation with interested stakeholders as appropriate. DFR will conduct these studies in-house, and they require no appropriation. Findings and recommendations shall be submitted to the relevant standing committees of jurisdiction in the form of draft legislation. The subject of each study is as follows. Section 17 concerns circumstances under which a bank could impose a transaction hold on a transaction if the bank has reason to suspect the account holder might be the victim of fraud. Section 18 concerns remedies for victims of coerced debt. Coerced debt often occurs in the context of domestic violence, where the debtor does not consent to a loan taken out in the debtor's name. Section 19 concerns genetic privacy, specifically with respect to direct-to-consumer companies that obtain genetic information from consumers and the circumstances under which a health insurance company might have access to such information. Sections 20 and 21 pertain to Medigap and eliminate a requirement for an independent analysis of certain proposed Medicare supplement insurance rate increases and would instead require DFR to post information on its website about all proposed Medicare supplement rate increases. These sections would also require a public hearing on rate increases greater than 10% under certain circumstances and would require health insurers to file their rate requests not less than 6 months prior to the effective date of the policy. Section 21 repeals the former language of that. Section 22 proposes to extend for 1 additional year the moratorium on new virtual currency kiosks in Vermont. Section 23 makes this act effective on July 1st, 2025, except that the Medicare supplement insurance sections would be effective on January 1st, 2026. The committee heard testimony from the acting commissioner of the Department of Financial Regulation, the Director of Insurance Regulation of the Department of Financial Regulation, the Deputy Commissioner of Insurance from the Department of Financial Regulation, the Deputy Chief Counsel from the Office of Legislative Counsel, the President of the Vermont Bankers Association, the Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs from the Attorney General's Office, the Government Relations Director of Primer, Piper, Eggleston, and Kramer, PC, the Deputy Commissioner of Banking from the Department of Financial Regulation, the Senior Director of Government Affairs from Rocket Mortgage, Chief Healthcare Advocate from the Vermont Legal Aid, the Director of Policy from the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, the founder and CEO of the Human Resource Consulting Group, LLC, the Senior Vice President and General Counsel of CoinFlip, Assistant General Counsel of the Department of Financial Regulation, the President of the Vermont Captive Insurance Association, the lobbyist from MMR, the Legislative Counsel, again from the Office of Legislative Counsel, the lobbyist from Associated General Contractors of Vermont, and the Director, Government Public and Media Relations for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Vermont. Madam Speaker, your Committee on Commerce and Economic Development found H 137 favorable with amendment by a vote of 11-0-0, and we respectfully ask for your support.
And now speaking for the Committee on Ways and Means, member from South Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Your Committee on Ways and Means reviewed H137 because it could have an impact on fee revenue collected by the state. The Joint Fiscal Office prepared a fiscal note regarding H137 dated March 12 that can be found on the Ways and Means Committee page in the H137 folder under the Bill tab. I will share highlights from the fiscal note, if I may, Madam Speaker.
You may.
The first part of the fiscal note summarizes the bill, which I will not repeat since the member from Bethel has already done an excellent job. Section 15 describes that the bill may have a small fiscal impact because it will exempt small payroll processors from paying money transmitter license fees. Companies that hold money transmitter license fees pay fees when they are first establishing themselves in the state. They pay renewal fees on a regular basis, and they occasionally pay examination or amendment fees. These fees are captured in the Financial Institution Supervision Special Fund, which I will refer to as the Special Fund from here on out. The Special Fund supports the Department of Financial Regulation's supervision of the banking industry. Any remaining funds after paying the department's expenses are returned to the general fund. To give you a sense of the scale of the fees, when establishing themselves in Vermont, money transmitters pay a $1,000 application fee, a $1,000 license fee, and $25 per delegate location. On a regular basis, they pay renewal fees of $1,000 plus $25 per location up to a maximum of $3,500. On an occasional basis, they may pay a $500 amendment fee or a $1,000 examination or investigation fee. In fiscal year 24, these fees contributed approximately $328,000 to the special fund, which represented approximately 9% of the fund's revenue of $3.6 million. In fiscal 24, the fund returned $1.1 million to the general fund. The changes in the bill are expected to impact less than 5 companies that currently pay fees, meaning that the impact on fees received by the special fund is expected to be minimal. Section 20 requires a new process to notify the public of premium increases greater than 10% in any Medigap insurance plan by posting increases on the DFR website, creating a public comment period, and allowing for a public hearing under certain circumstances. In theory, this could create additional work for the Department of Financial Regulation. Section 21 repeals the current process for independent third-party reviews of Medigap policy rate increases. Under current law, an independent review is only triggered in certain circumstances when a rate increase is above a certain threshold or may negatively affect the cost or availability of coverage. Witnesses testified that the DFR has only found exceedingly small differences between the outcomes of their internal reviews of these rate increases and those of independent reviewers because all reviewers, both internal and external, are using the same actuarial methods. Under current law, the DFR may bill the cost of an independent review to the affected policy. According to the fiscal note, the DFR does not expect a substantial fiscal impact nor a significant change to its workload as a result of the changes anticipated in sections 20 and 21 of the bill. The other sections of H137 are not expected to have any significant fiscal impact. We heard from the following witnesses: the principal fiscal analyst from the Joint Fiscal Office, a fiscal analyst from the Joint Fiscal Office, Deputy Chief Counsel from the Office of Legislative Counsel, Legislative Counsel from the Office of Legislative Counsel, the reporter of the bill from the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. The vote on the bill in our committee was 11-0-0, and we recommend that the bill ought to pass as amended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Are you ready for the question? If so, member from Northfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to comment briefly on several parts of the bill and then ultimately do have one question. But there are 3 pieces that are either a study or a request for a recommendation. And I think this body very reasonably and rationally sometimes questions if we overdo it with studies, why are we creating all this work elsewhere when it's work maybe we should be doing. And all of these pieces actually are excellent examples of why we do need, and sometimes very appropriately, seek out a study before acting. The issue of potential fraud, I think many people are aware of the problems we have with malicious intent, folks who con someone into withdrawing money. And in another committee, I've heard testimony from some of the banking institutions how helpless they feel when it's clear to them that some person who may be particularly vulnerable because they're older is saying, I want to withdraw this large amount of money. And there's a clear perception that something's wrong about this. But the bottom line is that obviously it should be clear under existing law, if it's your money that you hold in a bank and you're seeking to withdraw some, that's your right. That can't be interfered with. So that becomes a tough balance. When do we potentially impose a limitation on a fundamental right to access to your own money in order to protect someone, given that bank employees are not experts in determining whether someone has questionable capacity? So that's been an issue of discussion and concern, and I think it's an excellent step to seek out potential models to address this difficult balance. I think it's similar with the question of coerced debt. And I also know in terms of genetic privacy, the third requested recommendation, this is something that's come up in this body where a bill was actually passed by one committee and another committee with jurisdiction felt the need to back off. And there are difficult balances there, including issues around access to health care itself and the impediments to access to appropriate health care that can occur when genetic privacy becomes held hostage to insurance access. I do have a minor question on this. I'm wondering if the committee considered having that report, that recommendation, also be shared with the House Healthcare Committee that has jurisdiction over the health access aspects of this. So if I may interrogate of the presenter of the bill.
The member from Bethel is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, to my knowledge, we did not. We did not receive any suggestion or testimony as to referring it to the Healthcare Committee. That information.
I thank the member, and I think because this is going to occur within our current biennium, I don't believe there's a need to amend it to add that. I just would sort of request on the record, I guess, that it be shared with the Healthcare Committee in case there is some aspect that they would want to weigh in on. The final area is the question of the rate review for Medigap policies. And this is clearly simply an improvement on current process, and I think it's well considered. But there is a little bit of further history in this area that I think is worth considering. Way back when, before we had a Green Mountain Care Board, we had an agency of government called BISHCA. And BISHCA stood for Banking, Insurance, Securities, and Healthcare Administration. When the Green Mountain Care Board was created with a primary role of looking towards health reform, that divided off segments of BISHCA's role regarding healthcare, and the Department of Financial Regulation was created to be more focused on banking, insurance, and securities. But that division of who should be doing what evolved slowly. It had hospital budgets from the beginning. The Certificate of Need program was later shifted, and more things have been shifted into the Green Mountain Care Board, including insurance rate review for healthcare policies generally. This is a subcategory of healthcare insurance. And so I do wonder if I may further interrogate the presenter of the bill.
The member from Bethel is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, I'm wondering if there was any discussion underlying this of the broader question of whether the rate review for this particular type of healthcare insurance should also perhaps be transferred to the expertise in rate review of the Green Mountain Care Board.
Madam Speaker, our committee received this proposal from the Health Committee, and we did not take testimony on that.
I thank the member, and that also responds to what would have been my next question. That's all my questions, Madam Speaker, which would have been, was there input from the Healthcare Committee on that? And clearly there was, since the question was passed along to them. I do think that it's a worthy question to consider, to continue to consider, not really applicable to the specifics of this bill, which I think are very positive changes for protecting rights, especially the addition of the healthcare advocate's role in these reviews. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm very supportive of the strong positive actions that this bill takes.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Member from Calais.
Madam Speaker, I just have a technical question, if I might interrogate the presenter of the bill for Commerce.
The member from Bethel is interrogated.
I just happen to be following along with your presentation, and I have a question for you. On page 446 of today's calendar, I guess it's section 7, I, 3. Are you satisfied, if you read the first sentence, are you there? If you read the first sentence of 3, which is important because it's giving mutual insurers the privileges and subject them to the provisions, is there an extra as, or is it missing a verb?
I don't see an extra one on my copy.
My copy reads, as mutual insurers shall have the privileges and be subject to the provisions of sections 3303 and 3311 of this title, as well as the applicable provisions contained in this chapter, period.
I agree with you.
Is the as surplus?
That as probably is surplus, yeah.
I'm not sure what should be done at this point, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to point that out because it's an important section. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Are you ready for the question, member from Coventry?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a couple of comments from responding to the member from Northfield. On the genetic testing piece that we're asking the department to look at, I think last summer I noticed, and I think many others noticed, that there were one of these genetic testing companies that were possibly could go bankrupt. And so we were wondering what happens to any person that has utilized that company. They have your genetics. What do they do with that if that company is bought during a bankruptcy proceeding? And how is that taken care of? So I think that's one of the main reasons why we have that study in there, is to understand and what should we do, if anything, to make sure that Vermonters' genetic privacy is taken care of. Section 20 and 21, when we're talking about the Medigap, that actually was something that happened to me when I was signing up for my Get Medigap during open enrollment. I looked at the cost of what my Medigap was and what it would be, and I didn't see a change. So I was fine. A few weeks later, I got my new bill, and it was up $40. So I said, what's going on there? And this was on the government webpage. on the federal government webpage. So I went and had a discussion with Blue Cross Blue Shield and with the department to better understand what happened. And I think this is what happened and what our healthcare committee, and thank you to them for taking this up, was the ability to make sure that the rates that are being posted on the federal website are accurate. Because I think anyone that would rely on what is on the web page, on the website, sign up for that coverage, and then when you get the bill, it's quite a bit higher. That would be a surprise, especially for our seniors living in Vermont. So I appreciate the Healthcare Committee, I appreciate DFR and our insurers, and also for our healthcare advocate for working together to come up with a response to that. And also, I think by updating that statute, we are actually helping to reduce some of the cost that is borne by the insurers and by Vermonters as well. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Members, the final bill on our action calendar today is House Bill 266, which is an act relating to protections for 340B covered entities and 340B contract pharmacies. The bill is referred to the Committee on Health Care, which recommends that the bill be amended as printed in today's calendar. The member from Winooski, Representative Rebecca, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 266, an act relating to protections for 340B covered entities and 340B contract pharmacies.
Member from Winooski.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to present H 266, legislation that protects the 340B drug pricing program, which is a program that's critical to Vermont's healthcare providers that serve our state's most vulnerable. The bill also is establishing an important reporting requirements that will bring increased transparency to the program. So if you haven't already learned what 340B is from Senator Welch's social media account, the program was established in 1992 to allow certain hospitals, health centers, and clinics serving vulnerable populations to purchase outpatient prescription drugs at significantly reduced prices. The goal of 340B is to stretch our federal resources, allowing those covered entities to provide more comprehensive services to uninsured and underinsured patients. The savings that those healthcare organizations retain due to those discounted drug prices allow them to offer discounted prescription drugs, reduced patient payments, increased access to dental care, just to name a few. So let me outline the problem that this bill addresses. The 340B program and those savings that are derived from those participating in the program are critical to the operations and the financial stability of federally qualified health centers, FQHCs. An example of those is the Community Health Centers of Burlington, and several hospitals in Vermont. However, over the last 5 years, manufacturers have implemented several restrictions to the program, including the ability for healthcare organizations to contract with pharmacies in their communities, which has severely eroded those savings that are available. The reduced funding has put additional pressure on already fragile budgets. Some critics of the 340B program have raised objections on the lack of transparency on the program, especially around how healthcare organizations use those savings. So this bill, H 266, with input from all key stakeholders, strikes an important balance between providing insight into how the savings are used and benefiting Vermont residents with the need to protect the 340B program from further erosion. The policy solution in H266 is a structured approach to ensuring that the 340B program benefits reach those patients and the Vermont communities that they were intended to serve. The bill introduces accountability, transparency, along with regulatory oversight to prevent the misuse of funds and protect Vermont's rural community pharmacies. Madam Speaker, I invite you to take a walk through the bill with me. The second section includes a prohibition on discrimination. So what I mean by that is it prevents manufacturers, drug manufacturers, from restricting the acquisition of 340B drugs by covered entities or contract pharmacies unless mandated by federal law, because remember 340B is a federal program. It also includes data privacy protections. It prohibits manufacturers from requiring 340B entities to submit claims, utilization, or purchase data as a condition for access to 340B drugs. It includes protections for pharmacy operations by ensuring that pharmacies contracted with 340B entities can dispense those 340B drugs without interference. It includes a discount structure requirements by mandating that manufacturers offer 340B drug pricing as a discount at the time of purchase rather than through rebates. It also includes legal remedies and enforcements through by grant-covered entities that can seek the right for it. I'm going to start that section over again. Grant-covered entities can have the right to seek injunctive relief, compensatory and punitive damages, and other legal recourse if they're harmed by violations of those provisions. Section 2 also includes annual reporting requirements. This is the transparency piece. It requires hospitals participating in the 340B program to report to the Green Mountain Care Board on savings, payments made to contract pharmacies, and the reinvestment back into Vermont's community care. Finally, there is a sunset provision. It's 5 years out, so the repeal date would be January 31st of 2031, just for those reporting requirements to allow us some future review and potential adjustments to the data that's being collected. The H266 would take effect on passage, and the first report would be due January 31st of 2026. Just to summarize, each section of H266 was crafted with input from stakeholders, experts, and Vermont residents who are affected by the challenges that are created by unchecked contract pharmacy expansion. The Committee on Healthcare took extensive testimony from a broad range of witnesses, including a national policy advisor from the State Associations of Community Health Centers, a senior vice president of policy and strategy at Bi-State Primary Care Association, VAHS, or the Vermont Association of Hospitals and Health Systems, the deputy vice president of state health policy at Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, PhRMA, representatives from Blue Cross Blue Shield Vermont, MVP Healthcare, and the VP of Clinical Operations at Rutland Regional Medical Center. Also, the CEO of Community Health Centers of Burlington, the VP of Public Affairs at the Vermont Planned Parenthood of Northern New England, the Director of Rutland Pharmacy, a staff attorney with the Office of Healthcare Advocate at Vermont Legal Aid, and finally, the Office of Legislative Counsel. All of their testimony was invaluable in shaping this bill to ensure it addresses the real issues impacting patient care and our community pharmacy viability. H266 is not just a policy proposal. I feel it's a necessary correction to ensure that the 340B federal drug pricing program serves its intended purpose. It aims to protect Vermont's most vulnerable patients, support our community pharmacies, and prevent further erosion of patient access to affordable medications. Your Committee on Healthcare voted the bill out with tripartisan support on a vote of 10-0-1, and I ask the body to stand with Vermont's communities and support transparency and fairness to the 340B program by voting yes on H266.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Healthcare? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and third reading is ordered. Members, that completes the orders of the day. Are there any announcements? Member from Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, there's a sport called basketball that has a tournament and is I've been asked by our March Madness commissioner to remind people that they need to sign up for ice Sunday. You can, there are instructions in the email. I won't get into it now, but if you have any questions, please ask the representative from Chittenden.
Are there any further announcements? Member from South Burlington.
Madam Speaker, I want to extend a huge congratulations to the member from Montpelier. I'd like to recognize our colleague Rep. Casey for the incredible achievement of the 3 husbands of Sarah Tilbury winning the panel award at the Patchwork Playfest in Chicago. With over 900 submissions, just making it to the finals is an extraordinary accomplishment. Rep. Casey's hard work, talent, and dedication truly shone through. This recognition is a testament to his exceptional skills, and I look forward to seeing where this journey takes him next.
Congratulations, member. Member from Georgia.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Yes, the Irish certainly have many skills, don't they? Congratulations. Monday is St. Patrick's Day. Some committees here in the House will be working, but some not. So I want to take the opportunity to wish you all a happy St. Patrick's Day. So in spite of the green dress, I'm not of Irish heritage. I'm actually as Yankee as they come, but I married a man, the son of Irish immigrants. And I've enjoyed studying the in-migration and movement of Irish people here in our state. In 1832, Nathaniel Hawthorne visited Vermont. At that time, Burlington was a small but growing market town. Since its founding in 1780, Burlington had been the center of water trade, lumber, fish, stone, and Hawthorne described Burlington eloquently, including a description of the people that he saw on the streets, including the large number of Irish. There were many Irish here in Vermont at that time and as early as 1800, following the Irish Revolution of 1798. Part of that age of revolution you remember reading in your high school history books. I heard once that it was recently discovered within my lifetime, so within the last 25 years. Anyway, I heard that there were some early records of the city of Burlington discovered, and some of these very early records from 1800 and earlier were written in Irish, what is Gaelic. Many of you know it as Gaelic, but the Irish call it Irish. I haven't ever been able to get that confirmed, but I thought that was an interesting tidbit. Later, there were huge numbers of Irish people who came from Ireland due to the Great Famine. And Irish continued to move here to Vermont, many farmers to northwestern Vermont, where I live, and stone workers to Barrie, and other kind of people. So I won't take any more of your time, but happy St. Patrick's Day, coming on Monday.
Member from Burlington.
Madam Speaker, we heard issues of healthcare mentioned multiple times today, and whether it be pharmacies or whether it be Medicare or whether it be the solvency of our hospitals and our insurance companies, our healthcare system is in a crisis. And at this moment in history, we can't forget the promise of Act 48, which guaranteed Vermonters access to healthcare through a universal publicly financed healthcare system. So I'd like to take a moment to ask members to save the date that next Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. on Zoom only this time, we will have our next meeting of the Universal Healthcare Caucus. Thank you. Oh, and last but not least, Ireland does have a universal healthcare system with private options. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, member from Poultney, can you please offer us a motion to adjourn until Tuesday, March 18th, 2025 at 10 a.m.?
Madam Speaker, I make a motion this body stand in adjournment until Tuesday, March 18th, 2025 at 10 a.m.
You have heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And this body stands in adjournment until Tuesday at 10 a.m.